You're listening to The Lyndia Grant Show. Think on these things with Lyndia Grant.
Well, good evening, Radio 1 listeners. It's great to be back here with you again. This day is Friday, and we are here every Friday at 6 o'clock on Spirit 1340 WYCB. Happy to have with me today Dr. Julianne Melville. And then our second guest, we have a well-known preacher out of Brooklyn, New York, Reverend Dr. Jamaal Bernard. And so he's going to be talking to us about men and women raising men. It's going to be a little interesting conversation. Now let's go to Dr. Julianne Melville to see what she's talking about today with politics. It's always so much. What you got, Dr. J?
Oh, always so much. You know, we just got finished with the 4th of July in America, talking about freedom, you know, the 250th, which has turned into a debacle. It was supposed to be a celebration of the United States. It turned into a celebration of that man who lives in a house that enslaved people built. In other words, he turned it into a campaign rally, although theoretically he's not running for anything, but he turned it into a campaign rally. It was all about him. But we're not going to dwell on that. I just want to raise that up for a couple of reasons. A couple of things have happened. Number one, the campaign rally occurred on the backdrop of 100 plus degree days. If hot at hell, I'd let the preacher preach me to heaven, but it was hot as hell last week when we so-called celebrated. People were passing out around the green reflecting pool. People were having a very hard time. But the bottom line on all that is that it was all about somebody who was not about us. So the question we might ask might be, freedom for whom? Whose freedom were we celebrating? You know, when it's 100 degrees, Lyndia, guess who suffers? Black and brown people suffer more than others do. We live in places called urban concrete jungles, where the more concrete you have on the ground, the less likely there are to be trees. Trees and things like that basically make the temperature go down. The way that our inner cities work, it makes the temperatures go up. So this is just worth noting. It's nobody's fault, but yes, it is, because we've chosen to disinvest in urban areas. If you went from DC Ward 8 up to Ward 3, you start seeing trees, you start seeing all that. It's worth noting because summer is not over. We're going to have a lot more 100 degree plus days, which means a lot more extreme heat, which means who experiences it. Another thing I want to say about that is what happens to outdoor workers when the temperature is 100 degrees plus? And who's out there? If you see people on construction crews, they're black and brown men, mostly brown, but black men also. When it's more than 100 degrees, are we giving people water breaks? Are we giving them even water? Someone told me the other day, I was outside inadvisedly and was burning up, and his brother told me, he said, pour the water over your head. It lowers your temperature. I'm like, I have a nice dress on. I don't think so. He said, pour the water over your head, and it did make a difference. My temperature went down by about 3 degrees. But the difference in one part of DC and another in terms of temperature is about 7 degrees, depending on how much concrete there is. So while we had this big old party, campaign rally, all of that, a lot of people were sweltering. A lot of people had no choice but to work. They had to work if they wanted to keep their jobs. So who loses? Now, that man who lives in a house that enslaved people built is right on Tuesday. He's over at NATO. He's been saber rattling with NATO since he became part of public office. He doesn't want to be in NATO. He wants to make demands for NATO. Well, NATO is now time enough for him. Canada has reached out to 2 other European powers to talk about developing their own weaponry. In other words, we're not waiting for you to support us, the United States. But at the same time, I'll be honest, that man has made a difference. Most NATO countries have increased their spending on defense, or we could call it offense. But anyway, he is in Turkey with his friend Erdogan. We'll see. We're talking on Tuesday. We'll see by Friday what has happened. We have a lot of issues on the table, NATO, including Ukraine, including Iran. So it's an open story. Now, meanwhile, we just finished the 4th of July, and some of the banners have come down. But what banners have gone up now, then? This is worth noting. One of them is the back to school thing. You've seen it. You've got grandchildren. Anybody who has young people have seen it. Back to school. You're getting something online, new notebooks, new pens, new pencils, back to school. But guess what? Back to school doesn't mean good things for a lot of people. We want folks to go back to school, but the student loan landscape changed as of July 1st. So public service loan forgiveness, which was introduced by the Biden administration, has now been scrapped. So there were several programs. Now they've narrowed it down to 2 programs for public service loans. If you were a teacher, a nurse, a service worker, parts of your loans can be forgiven, no more. They've changed all of that. If you have one of those, I advise you to please get in touch with your loan provider. You're being pushed out of a program that was subsidized into a new program that is challenging. You need to know the details. But basically, if you had a public service loan and you expected forgiveness, it's not happening now. And so that really is a big problem. Now, meanwhile, talking politics, we have in Maine, people were excited about Maine. Susan Collins has been a senator. I think she's 4 or 5 terms. She's been in there forever. She plays moderate, but she votes Republican. She is a Republican, but she always says she's moderate. She's the one who made Brett Kavanaugh a Supreme Court justice. So people were excited when Grant Plattner, he's an Oyster man, progressive, endorsed by Bernie Sanders. When he came in, people were like, oh yes, this is going to be good. Well, this man has a record that nobody would want of sexual harassment, sexual assault. Now, all of this is alleged, of course. Basically, ill treatment of former girlfriends. The last 2 accusations were like, for many, like Bernie Sanders, like Elizabeth Warren, like the last straw. I mean, at some point you give someone the benefit of the doubt, but at some point you're like, there's smoke, there's fire. And there's been a lot of smoke around this man. I can't judge what he did or what he didn't do because I don't know. But what I do know is we're looking at multiple accusations from women of various forms of sexual harassment, assault, even rape. What is the Democratic Party to do? They desperately need this Maine seat because if the Democrats can get the control of the Senate, good things can happen. But at what cost? Do you want to get control of the Senate by supporting someone who's an alleged rapist? These are the questions that people are asking. Now, again, we're talking on Tuesday. Who knows what will happen by Friday? If Plattner chooses to withdraw by next week, Monday, that would be the 7th, not the 7th, the 13th. If he chooses to withdraw by the 13th, what happens is the Democrats can put somebody else in that seat through the Maine legislative process. But he still hasn't decided whether he's in or he's out. If he stays in, he's likely to lose. I mean, his numbers are tanking. If he goes out, who will be his replacement? There are several people in Maine who say they want it. And a couple of them, one person actually, as of Tuesday, has filed paperwork to say if he's out, then they're in. But this is very precarious for Democrats. I'll tell you why. We ran Al Franken from Minnesota out of his Senate race because some woman said he put his hands on her. Didn't say he raped her, didn't say he harassed her, put his hands on her. So now if we were able to run that good guy out for that, why are we still sticking with Plattner? By we, I mean Democrats. So this is a mess. Now, how much more time do I have?
Oh, about 1 more minute.
Okay, I'm going to take that minute to talk about soccer. See, somebody in a house that enslaved people built thinks they can basically tank anything. And so a man, his name is Folarin Flogan, he was on the U.S. team. He was given a red card for a foul, and the president decided to insert himself into it. This never happens. You play the game, you win, you lose, but he was going to put himself in it. Okay, so they rejected. He got a red card, which is like a foul. They said, we're going to take it back. But guess what? Belgium won anyway. 4-1. Not only did they win, they made fun of the president. They made fun of all his little stupid dances. And, basically, they said to him, you may have overturned the red card, but you can't overturn this. A 4-1. So in international gamesmanship, the United States looked like a spoiled brat and a bully by trying to jump into that. So, somebody has been getting smacked around quite a bit lately.
Oh, yeah, a lot.
With good cause. So
yes, it is.
I'll stop there, Lyndia. I had to laugh at that. I don't know if you saw the video of the Belgian team trying to replicate that Trump dance he does.
No, I didn't see that. I got to turn on it.
It was hilarious. But guess what? They had 10 times more rhythm than he will ever have.
Oh, I know they did. with his diaper wearing self. Excuse me, listener.
So you're absolutely right. You need to raise that up. The diaper wearing self.
Okay.
So that's me today.
Thank you, Dr. Julian. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay, thank you. Take care.
All right, bye. We're going to go to our commercial break, and we'll be back in a moment.
If it wasn't for my care coach at AmeriHealth, I probably wouldn't be so healthy right now. As a man, we don't get checkups or see a doctor regularly anyways. It's probably just a man thing because none of my partners go either. We know we should, but we just don't, and hope it works out.
So what changed for you?
AmeriHealth assigned me a care coach, somebody that gives one-on-one help, answer questions, explain things, and help set my appointments. She also helped me understand what having high blood pressure really means and ways to manage it so it doesn't kill me. It ain't nothing to play with. If you're a member of AmeriHealth, ask for a care coach. I'm glad I got mine.
At AmeriHealth, if you need a care coach, you can have one. Just call us at 1-877-759-6224 to get connected. 1-877-759-6224. This program is funded in part by the government of the District of Columbia Department of Healthcare Finance. Mayor Muriel Bowser.
Washington and former religion columnist Lyndia Grant.
Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a segregated Montgomery bus. In lectures on brotherhood, Ms. Parks often said, "People always say that I didn't give up my seat because I was tired." But that wasn't true. I was not tired physically. I was not old. I was 42. No, the only tired I was tired of giving in. Driven out of Montgomery by harassment and death threats, Detroit, Michigan became her new home. Rosa Parks will always be remembered as the mother of the civil rights movement. Raised in the AME church, she once said, "I remember finding such comfort and peace while reading the Bible."
Read more in the religion column of the Washington Informer, an award-winning African-American newspaper. We don't report crime or gossip, just positive news. Pick up the Washington Informer or visit us online at washingtoninformer.com. Call 202-561-4100 for more information.
This is Frank Smith with the African American Civil War Museum in Washington, D.C., located at 1925 Vermont Avenue Northwest on the Green Line. Did you know that a recent study found that children who visit museums do better in school and in life than children who do not? So parents, teachers, and preachers, let's get moving. I promise you, if you bring your children to the African American Civil War Museum, they will be inspired by the images that they see. They will be impressed by our living history reenactors who are always available, and they will be involved in our scavenger hunt that takes them throughout our exhibit. That's the African American Civil War Museum, 1925 Vermont Avenue. Our hours are 10 to 6:30 on weekdays, 12 to 4 on Saturdays and Sundays. See it, be inspired.
We are back now for our second half. I'm really excited to have my guests on with us today. This is a show for the men. We're talking faith, real talk, and next generation leadership with a man who is reshaping the spiritual landscape. He is an author, an entrepreneur, the host of the hit podcast Off Script, and he is the senior pastor of the historic Christian Cultural Center. From the pulpit to publication, his mission is simple: to help you step unapologetically into God's purpose for your life. Listeners, get ready for a powerful conversation. Welcome to today's show, Pastor Jamaal Bernard. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you. It's so good to have you on as my guest.
Thank you for having me on. And how do I refer to you? Is this Mrs. Grant or Lyndia? I want to maintain
Dr.
respect.
Lyndia Grant.
Okay, Dr. Lyndia Grant. I love it.
Yes. So we'll talk about 12 minutes. And so let me just start you off with the first question, which is on the strong black man, quote unquote, stereotype. How can we dismantle the societal expectation that Black men must act as unbreakable providers and instead cultivate community spaces where vulnerability and seeking support are normalized as true forms of strength?
Wow, that's a great question, and I believe that the answer is layered. In order to really answer it, we have to look at one, the community, and understand where we are as individuals. A lot of it, I would say, has to start at home, right? Our conversations have to change at home, and we need to look at what does the home structure look like. So, for example, one of the things that my dad taught me is that what does strength look like? And he always told me, he said, son, become a big guy. At one point I was 365 pounds. I'm 6'3". It's like a big mountain moving around. And one of the things that he told me, he said, son, your strength is not shown in how you can push people around, but how gentle you can be. And that set me on a journey of understanding what does masculinity look like and how does manhood look like at this stage of life for Jamaal Bernard. And I think a part of it is really saying, okay, let's change the narrative. Let's start having conversations, normalizing certain things in the conversation, and not devaluing and taking away certain traditions or certain elements of who we are as a cultural group of individuals.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I like that. And then I received a couple of promo pictures of you, one as a pastor in your suit and another one in the gym. So on a physical fitness note, given how systemic disparities and daily stresses impact Black male health, how can fitness and movement be utilized as an active tool for psychological restoration, lowering stress hormones, and reclaiming bodily autonomy?
I think it works hand in hand, right? Body emotion stays in motion. So there's a necessity for we as just individuals, people, period, just to continue staying in emotion. I realize that you look at individuals of certain ages and you can tell that this individuals stay in motion and they look younger, they look healthier and whatnot. And I think a part of that conversation needs to have the understanding that, once again, I went through some dark places. I went through some rabbit holes trying to navigate this whole idea of dealing with working out and getting in shape. And I think that we are a multi-layered individuals, and so we have to speak to every aspect of our body, of ourself, right? Our human experience. And so we are psychosocial, spiritual beings. And if we don't really make sure that we deal with this mental element of Jamaal Bernard, I had to deal with the emotional element of Jamaal Bernard. I had to deal with the spiritual element of Jamaal Bernard and the physical element of Jamaal Bernard. And if I don't holistically go after that individual of Jamaal Bernard, I always lack in some areas. And I think if we have a different approach and understanding that it's not just something that we would do, but it's a part of a necessity of life. It's more of a lifestyle journey instead of saying, hey, I'm just going to work out because I got a goal. No, you should work out because it's a lifestyle journey. So the conversation can go on. And I know you told me to keep it short, so I'm keeping it brief. But all your questions there are multiple layers to responding to some of your questions to go more in depth, even for the first one you had asked me, because I think that question is surface based. It's not it doesn't dig deep enough for the traumatic elements of the Black experience, right? Especially we're talking about Black men. Yeah. And so from a mental element to, understanding what masculinity looks like, and then, to now the physical element of what it means to go work out in the gym, we don't have enough time to really go into it. But I think there's a need at least to start having a conversation of what it looks like for especially Black men to take back and take control of what we look like and how we feel inside and outside.
Well, I want to go off the script a little bit and just talk about something that I care a lot about. There's so many of our Black men in prison. It's almost like slavery in America still exists to a great extent because there's so many millions, and it upsets me. It's one of my pet peeves that I worked so hard to make sure both of my sons, I got divorced, but I had 2 sons and I had to save them because I know what was out there for our Black boys. Talk to me on that topic.
Well, there's a combination, right? So there are, believe it or not, there are more people in prison than there are people behind iron bars and cement blocks, right? And that prison I'm talking about is the prison of the mind. And I think if we address that element, we will start seeing a transformation on the element of the mass incarceration, right? It is big business, right? The number of individuals making a profit, so they.
So you saying there are 2 of them? One is at mine, and the one is behind bars, and some are both.
Yes, and some are both, right? Some are both, and I think if you look at the idea, so psychologists have looked at the trauma that has transitioned into a genetic default for us as people of color that have been brought over into America on slave trade. So there's an element that we have to deal with when it comes to that. And then there's another element where we need to start acknowledging, once again, start changing the narrative and acknowledging that there are, if for the people of color, it's not just, hey, get over it. No, we need to start talking about this trauma. We need to start having conversations about this trauma. But we don't need to go to the extreme where we start redefining what certain words mean, and we lean into the essence of what those words mean so that we can definitely have these conversations. I think a part of this is, right, one, what you're doing now is starting to have these conversations and start looking at the realities that we face as people of color. 2, I think we need to start responding to the household. And I'm old school. I lean a little more traditional than a lot of individuals. So I'm going to say something that people aren't going to like, but it is what it is. If you want to understand the condition of the community, look at the home. Right. And so we look at the homes of the Black community, and then that tells us why our community is the way it is. And they say, if you want to understand the home, look at the man, right? And I don't want to, say a lot of women have done a great job raising great men, but that is not the design. And so whenever you veer off from the original design of a man and a woman to raise a child, you have the tendencies and the propensities of chaos that derives from that. And so you look at a community, you can understand a community when you look at the house. You look at the house, you can understand the condition of the house based on the man that's living there or the lack of a man living there. And once again, a lot of women have done some great jobs. I give a lot of credit to my mother for what she built, but there's also things that she couldn't have done that my dad was able to do to help me become the man I am.
Oh, my sons tell me that all the time, especially my baby son. My husband was there when we got divorced, but when he left and got on the plane, went back to California, he was in kindergarten. So I did what I read in Sidney Poitier's book, This Life. His mom talked so hard about how she just kept telling her boys, Sidney in particular, what she wanted them to learn, because I can't remember where their father was, if he had died or whatever. But I just kept reminding myself to be that voice, because I grew up in a home with 2 parents that were ministers and 9 children, and they stayed married till they died. So I knew one way, but I didn't know the other way. Because you're right, women don't know how to raise boys alone. So I tried to find ways, mentors, but mostly drilling into their minds. They offer drugs. Don't be out there in the corner, in the streets with the drug dealers, and moving to a part of the city where it wasn't as bad. I mean, it just was a whole thing that I took on, and and my son now, so he'll never divorce his wife because he has 2 sons, and he intends to break that, what happened with fathers leaving. He doesn't intend, because he didn't like how his was, and he intends not. So I'm gonna stop right there, because I could go on and on this.
And like you said, there are layers to this, right? Because there are realities that, we as just men, period, we have a whole generation of men that have you're starting to see fruits being a birthing of fruits that was sown in 2 generations ago. And so now we're trying to respond to it, because we didn't deal with the issues and some of the things that was going on, from the crack epidemic, from the welfare, institutionalizing of welfare, from the systems and systemic elements that they were brought into certain
where the men had to hide. They couldn't be seen.
Yes. So I keep you from being in a home, because if you're a single mother and you're with kids, you can get welfare, you can get aid and whatnot. And so now that, and then you look at the whole, we could go back generations and looking at what the little seeds that were planted to get us where we are now. The big industrial revolution, where they went from farming to traveling into these big cities to work, and they were out of the house for days at a time. So the men, things started shifting, and once again, then you got war, and you got elements that the seeds that were planted then. And so what you're seeing now is the fruit of all the seeds that were planted 2-3 generations from where we are today. And I think if we don't root certain things and respond to it intentionally, we're going to see ourselves even in a darker place, 2-3 generations from where we are now.
Well, Pastor Jamaal, I took the interview and went somewhere with it, but it was in my heart.
Okay.
I need to get you on my podcast so we can keep talking, because my radio show only has for so many minutes. It's
okay. All right.
Show, but I think the people would still enjoy what we talked about today.
Thank you so much. Yeah, let me know. I'm willing to talk.
All right. I'll talk to Evan, and so we can do a podcast. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning in to the Lyndia Grant Show. That does it for this week. Good day.
Thank you for listening to the Lyndia Grant Show. Think on these things with your host, Lyndia Grant.